realest coaches in the game. Coach RB and Coach CB. Area code 459.
What up, area code 459? It's your boy, Coach B. I'm here with my co-host, Coach CB. What's up, CB?
What's up, Coach? How you doing?
Man, I'm blessed. We got two special guests in the house, but before we get to our guests, let's thank some people.
We want to give a shout out to In-House Inc. for the awesome logo that they've created behind us. We also want to give a shout out to J May Crafts for all of the awesome household items that she's created along with our shirts. She's done an awesome job with that. We also want to give a shout out to our guy, George Frost, for the East Bay store that he has put together. If you guys want our logo on all of your favorite Nike and Jordan apparel, click the link below. Check out our store. Most importantly, we want to thank our friends and our family for the support that they've given us. We definitely couldn't have done it without them. And then most importantly, God for the vision that he has given us for area code 459.
Man, I'm super excited. Like she said, if you want that gear, click that link below. It's coming from East Bay on all your favorite Nike and Jordan apparel. CB, we're continuing on with our Hidden Voices mini series. Go ahead and introduce our guests to the next episode of Hidden Voices. Go.
Today we have two very special guests. First being from Tallahassee, Florida, where he played basketball at the University of New Orleans before transferring on to FSU. While he was at Florida State, he was a student assistant with the women's basketball program and graduated there with his bachelor's degree in finance and real estate. From there, he then transferred on to the University of Texas at Arlington, where he earned his master's degree in finance. Outside of education, he is involved in a mentorship program at the University of Texas, and he's a part of the FSU Real Estate Society. Currently, he works with Trademark as a senior financial analyst. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Mitchell Parker. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm excited for this. I've watched, some of the past podcasts, so I'm excited to be on, man. I watch a lot of podcasts. This is my first time doing one, so I'm looking forward to it.
And before
awesome.
we introduce our next guest, Mitchell, I do want to make a correction because I'm in Austin, Texas. That's UT Austin.
UT Austin, not UT Arlington. There is UT Arlington, but I went to the University of Texas Longhorns in Austin, Texas.
That's right.
Give me right. My bad.
No, you're fine.
Our next guest is also from Tallahassee, Florida. He attended Gardner-Webb, where he played baseball and completed his degree in finance and economics. From there, he was able to intern with Morgan & Stanley before he earned a position as a financial advisor associate within the company. He now works with Stifel, where he develops retirement planning strategies for nonprofit and small businesses. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Blair Huggins. How are you doing, Mr. Blair?
Great, guys. Thanks for having me on. And, I didn't tell you, but this is also my first podcast. So I'm happy to get to do it with you guys. This is great.
Good. That is awesome. And guess what? Our episode is about hidden voices. We know that there's voices out there that could help our community and continue to grow and develop people. So we appreciate you guys having on. And we came to the conclusion that we wanted to do a mini series about hidden voices. We thought it was so important to listen to other people's stories, develop relationships, and also follow up. Much like sharing your own story can help benefit others, it can also engage other people. And then listening to your story can help broaden our scope and knowledge and understanding. So this is a question for both you guys, and either one of you guys can start. But we're going to start tonight's podcast off with, tell us about yourself and how you, as an athlete, played an intricate part of how you grew up in your makeup of who you are today. Go, Mitchell.
Yeah. Okay. I'll start, man. So obviously, there's a lot that affects your life and who you become. Obviously, every single person in the world has a slightly different experience than everybody else. And, that's what's awesome. It makes us all individuals. But, for a lot of athletes, they're being an athlete, playing sports, whether it's as you grow up and you finish as a high school athlete, or, for some of us, we get to be college athletes. And for some, they make their entire career based around sports as a professional athlete or as a coach or whatever. But sports, really, regardless of at what level you end up finishing, being an athlete and playing sports can really help shape who you are as a person. And, for me, I think I got a lot from sports. the first time I had to really endure hard work was in athletics. Thankfully for me, school was always something that came pretty naturally, but, and I had good size for sports. I'm very tall, but, I wasn't the fastest, wasn't the most athletic guy naturally. So there was a lot of hard work that went into developing a skill set that could allow me to compete at a high level in high school and then make it to the Division I college program. I mean, I really was able to start working hard. And I had seen, you obviously see hard work from family and friends around you, but, that was something that really got instilled in me through sports was facing challenges and understanding that I'm not always going to be the best at everything, but if I put in the time and effort, I can get myself to a level of where I want to be. And, I think that humility is something that comes huge from sports because, especially when you're not just supernaturally gifted, you get humbled a lot, and that's something that will happen in your career. It'll happen in just daily life, but sports will teach you that quick. There's always somebody who's out there that's going to be a little bit better than you or is working a little harder than you. And that's something you just got to take and understand that that's the case and work harder to get to the level that you want to be at. And I think those are two things I took away from sports that has stuck with me as I've become a professional and I've tried new endeavors. That understanding that you're not just great at everything right away. So you really got to work hard. You got to stay humble and understand that, the people who you see that are successful, the reason they got there is because they worked hard, and you got to put in that same effort. And you got to understand that, it's your work and you have natural talents and gifts that God gives you, but you really got to, work to hone those skills and you get a lot of help from those around you. I played a team sport, so as good as I was, and I had colleges recruiting me and stuff, if I didn't have teammates and coaches pushing me and helping me and making me look good in certain situations, I wouldn't have been there. So, I think that's something that sports has really given me. But Blair probably has a similar situation. I would imagine he played a team sport as well. But yeah, what do you got, Blair?
I love athletics because it teaches you so many life lessons that you just don't get anywhere else, especially growing up as a kid in high school, being a collegiate athlete. Being an athlete, it teaches you how to work in order to win, but also it teaches you how to fail, because being an athlete, you are going to fail at some time or another. And that's something that I just don't think a lot of people know how to do in life, and they just can't handle these days. Is especially a lot of these younger kids, they don't know what failure is really like, and because they've always got somebody telling them, "Oh, it's okay." There's such that everybody's a winner mentality these days, and when you get to real life, that's just not the case. Everybody is not a winner. You're not going to be a winner all the time unless you work for it. Being a teenager. Working on I was a baseball guy, Mitch was a basketball guy, but working with 8 other guys on the field and, 15 to 20 other guys on the bench, there's a lot of talent on the field, and you don't get to play unless you put in the work and you're one of the best out there. There's a lot of times I just flat out wasn't the best out there. And I had to work for it. That's the only way that I was able to make it, and to where I was a starter in high school, and I was able to go on to Division I and play baseball at a very high level. But I absolutely had to work for that. I wasn't naturally gifted. I'm not naturally athletic. I just was able to put in the work, and I had a lot of failures that drove me to where I wanted to work hard for it. But that's so awesome, because that teaches you so many lessons growing up that translate well, not only into the athletic world, but into the business world, into life after athletics. Because at some point in time, you're going to have to put down the bat. You're going to have to put down the basketball. You're not going to be able to do that and make your living or get your scholarship that way. And you're going to have skills that translate into some other area of life. And learning how to fail and deal with that failure and to overcome that translate awesome into the business world. I don't think I'd be anywhere near the business person I am today if I didn't learn how to deal with failure as a young kid playing sports. So, it's not all about failure. You also want to win, obviously, but you don't get that drive unless you do have some failure. So learning how to win in the business world, really, I got a lot of that from being an athlete as a younger man.
Yeah, and I'd like to, I mean, that's a great point, Blair. I'd say, like, you're not always going to get that dream job, the first time you apply for it. And, I'm sure Blair could tell you, he's a financial advisor, and you're not going to land every client. And sometimes you may be sitting there thinking, I think what the strategy I've laid out for you, what I want to do to help you, plan for your retirement or whatever, is the best strategy for them. And it might be, but, not everyone's always going to go with it. Sometimes people, they just want to do it their own way, or they want to, go another direction. And that's not always the worst thing, because you never know what else is going to open up for you down the road. Or, it might just be, hey, the way you delivered your pitch to that client, or the way you performed in that interview, or the way you communicated, or whatever, that's just something that you need to work on. And it's not necessarily always a bad thing. It can be a thing you learn from, like Blair was saying. You're never going to understand success unless you've had failure. So, that stuff's going to come in the real world too. So I think that's a great point, Blair.
Athletics is an awesome thing for young kids. I think it's one of the best tools out there to help develop young men and young women into being leaders. Because not only as a young kid, do you have to learn how to work for things that you're not naturally perhaps good at, but you also have to deal with different people. Everybody has to deal with different people, different personalities, different leadership styles. As an athlete, you have to deal with different coaches. You perhaps have to deal with somebody who's a little bit more senior on the team than you are. And that translates just fantastically into everyday life. Like not hardly anything else that you can do as a kid really does.
I love how you guys talk about that, because like failure, I was just having a conversation earlier today, but we were talking about preparation, and I heard a quote by Carol Lawson the other day, and she said, preparation doesn't guarantee results, but it always guarantees growth. And I think that's failure. Like we always leverage, it's not a loss, but it's a lesson. There's always a way to continue to move forward and grow and learn from those failures. And then Mitchell, you talked about you couldn't have gotten where you were if it wasn't for the people around you, like teammates pushing you to be better, coaches pushing you to be better. And sports is such a mentor mentee type of profession. Like there's more hats to be worn than just being the name of a coach, And so when I was in sports, I have so many people that influenced me. Coach Britt, my college coach, Coach Cam that he was telling about earlier in Atlanta, Coach Avery, who is my mentor down when I worked in the inner city. Like so many of these coaches, had I not been an athlete, I would have never been in their life. They would have never been in my life and influenced me the way they have. But who has been an influence in your life, and how have they encouraged you to use your voice and your passion to impact those that are around you and what you do every day?
Yeah, I'll let Blair tackle this one first.
Yeah, I've had a lot of mentors and mentees, a lot of mentors in my life. Just being around athletics, that naturally happens when you're around people who've been around the game for a long time, and then transitioning to the business world. I've had a lot of mentors. I've had a few awesome coaches that I could sit down with, and they could say, Blair, you really need to improve in this area. You're good here and there, but you really need to step your game up. And maybe your defense or maybe your hitting. Usually it was hitting for me. But having a relationship with a mentor to where you can go and sit down and really talk things out and get honest opinions was great. From the time I was a boy playing sports to even now, today in the business world, one of my biggest mentors was my dad. We work together every single day. We're on the same financial advisor team together. And when I was playing ball, he was always honest. We kind of knew playing baseball that I was probably not good enough to go to a Division I powerhouse like Florida State, which was every boy in Tallahassee's dream, or University of North Carolina or University of Texas where Mitch went. But I knew that I was good enough to play at a high level. I happened to be Gardner-Webb University for me. It's Division I baseball. We're not in the ACC or the SEC, but we're in the Big South playing Division I teams like Coastal Carolina, Liberty University. But me and Dad sat down many, many times and just talked about where do we really think that I had the chance to go and play ball at. Now he happens to be my partner in the business world. It's awesome that I worked out that way, but he's been a financial advisor for 32 years now, has a lot of experience. We talk daily about new things that are happening in the business world. What should we do with this client? How should I handle this situation? Hey, Dad, have you ever come across this situation before? It's been awesome having him on board to where he has so much experience, but I can still come talk to him and say, hey, I need a little help here. What are your thoughts there? He's been a great mentor. So that would be one of the best mentors I've had in my life as an athlete and in the business world today. I've been very blessed with that.
Yeah, and like Blair, you know, I was blessed to have a very solid family who pushed me towards my goals and who sacrificed, you know, their time and their money and you know, put me towards camps and let me go drive to Panama City every day to go play basketball and practice to be on Britain's AAU team when I was in between my junior and senior year and really trying to get recruited. And, you know, I'm thankful for that. And you know, Blair talked about with athletics that you sometimes just naturally get mentors from, you know, coaches and maybe players who are a little older, who have been in your position. I think that's definitely something that naturally comes in sports. And unfortunately, in the real world, you know, quote unquote, real world, those natural mentorships may not always come about, but I think seeking out somebody who can, you know, seeking out mentorship programs or seeking out somebody who's maybe where you want to be one day, if you know your goal is to become whatever it is, a coach, or, you know, you want to be a CFO of a company or a CEO of a company, or I know Bryn's been getting into real estate lately, like, you want to be a successful realtor, go find a successful realtor and just ask to take them to lunch, ask them to get some coffee and just pick their brain. Say, hey, do you have 30 minutes for a Zoom call? Because of COVID, I mean, people might not want to meet in person, but just find some time where you can ask them some questions. And, you know, I think that's super important for people to do. But to get a more direct answer to your question, I don't really have one specific person who's really like emphasized for me to use my voice, but I've had several people who, you know, some in my career field and some outside of my career field that have said, hey, you wanna be successful in what you're doing, you need to get involved with groups. You need to get involved with the people in your community who do what you do, and try to do whatever you can to work with them. And don't, whatever you think is good enough and far enough and you're involved enough, go a little bit further than that. You know, I've had people like the CEO of my current company, he took me to lunch on like my first or second day, and he said, you know, reach out to these people who have been successful in this field and try to get lunch with them, or try to go to their office and meet with them for 30 minutes or whatever. You know, join groups. I've had people who are in my company who have been successful who say, hey, you know, we work in commercial real estate. Here's local area, DFW commercial real estate, national commercial real estate groups that you can get involved with. You know, go join a committee, go join a board and do that. And one thing I would point out too, you know, for some people, you know, speaking comes naturally, and you say use your voice, or you have a hidden voice you need to display. And you know, for me, I like to talk a lot. And speaking is something I can naturally do, whether that's in a presentation. Blair's laughing because I used to get in trouble with talking all the time. But yeah, you know, doing a presentation or speaking or doing a podcast is something that for me comes naturally. But one thing I would emphasize is for people who maybe aren't as comfortable with it, or, you know, it's just not something you enjoy doing, put yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit and try to do those things, but find something you are good at. If you're great at, you know, you're an artist, you want to be an artist, and you have a passion for something, use your art to do that. Even if it's not your career, if you like doing it, say, hey, I can help out with this event by providing a banner or something that I can make for the event. Or if you're great with organizational skill, you know, maybe you want to do more behind the scenes stuff. You join a group for a local area community event, be like, look, I'm not going to be the person up there with a microphone running the event, but I can help organize schedules. I can help get stuff booked. I can make sure that the stuff we need to have for this event to be successful is going to be put in place. And, you know, that's it. That's using your voice in your own way. And you know, if you get a community of people who want to use their voice and everyone has a different talent, you know, you can have a very successful community around you, and you can be successful and you can make them more successful. So that's what I would encourage people to do. Just get involved and find mentors. So those two things.
Man, I really like the vibe you guys have. You guys are providing so many gems and so much content. You know, you talked about like joining a board. I mean, you even talked about Blair, what we call here at 459, we call them our purpose partners. How, you know, you and your dad started an intricate relationship while you were playing ball, and it was bonded in trust. And I, you know, even though, you know, he is your dad, it's still another level of expertise, right? It's another level of maturity, and it's so hard for students or children to make that connection with adults. But it was a bond that was so close that it leaked over into the professional world. And, you know, you follow through with him every day. And you guys talk about how sports help you, you know, diversify yourself and connect with different types of people and deal with different types of people. And, you know, you guys both actually do something that's very scary to a lot of people either listening to this or just a lot of people in this country, period. Economics, financial literacy. They don't understand it. They don't believe in it. They everything's really transactional. I think we try to talk about the difference between relational and transactional. People are very when it comes to people, they're very transactional, and when it comes to their money, they're very relational. And it's kind of weird, because when you think to yourself, you're like, hey, like, people don't speak power to their money, or people don't speak purpose to their money. They just kind of let it fly out the window. And, you know, thank God we have, you know, YouTube on here. So I kind of want to dive into, you know, out of the athletic realm, but I want to kind of look into your professional life. Could you tell us a time where you achieved professional success, but you necessarily don't want to repeat it? And the reason why I asked this question that way is because financially, a lot of people don't want to take what's necessary to get out of their financial situations to get on the green side of their finances. They rather just keep doing the same thing over and over. And as an athlete and as a coach, people tell me, if you just keep doing the same things over and over, you're basically you're basically insane. That's the definition of insanity. So in your professional life, when was a time that you were successful, but you don't want to repeat that experience again?
Yeah. So for me, you know, I got my first job out of my master's program, and, you know, I got a job at a hedge fund in Fort Worth, Texas. And, you know, I think I learned a ton at that company. I think some of the people I worked with were some really great people, and that everyone who worked at that company was extremely smart. But it was something, you know, I was really searching for my first career. I had worked a little bit after I stopped playing basketball and I transferred to Florida State. I had worked, you know, part-time while I was in school, and I was working with the women's basketball program at Florida State a little bit. And you know, I had done an internship, things like that, but I had never really made a career move, and I didn't exactly know how to figure out the company that I wanted to work for. And, you know, it ended up being something that wasn't the best fit for me personally. The company, like I said, I learned a lot, and I think it's something that I gained from and I used as an experience. And you know, when you look at my resume, that is a success. It's a very highly respected hedge fund, especially in the DFW area. They are successful as a company, and the people who work there tend to be very successful individuals. But it's something for me, if I was starting over today, I might not necessarily go for that same corporate environment. You know, but that's something you got to learn from it. And that's something, I didn't have anyone who worked in the field in my family or in my close knit circle that did exactly what I wanted to do at the time. And, you know, I still don't even know exactly what I want to do because I have so many interests, but you know, I ended up coming to Trademark where I am now, and I really love being there. It's a community that really, as a company, feels like they really care about personal success as much as they care about the company's success. And they really push me to grow as an individual and encourage me to get involved and encourage me to pursue things that I'm interested in. And even though I might work in one department, they say, hey, you're interested in that, go see if there's any projects you can help them out with so you can learn about it. So that's something I might do a little bit differently. And then on the personal finance side, you know, I got married recently. I got a beautiful wife, Mara, and we've got our personal financial goals. And when I never had a mentality of wanting to try to flaunt wealth or whatever when I know I don't have it. But you know, there are some decisions I made where when I was first getting out of school, it wasn't purchases that I necessarily regretted making. There's things that I think I got use out of, but I definitely might approach my finances a little bit differently. I always had a generalized budget of my personal finances, and this is roughly the amount of money I think I can spend on XYZ category. But once I got engaged, my wife and I really sat down and looked at, okay, what's our net worth? You know, what sort of money do we have coming in? How much cash do we have on hand? What are the items we own worth? And then how much debt do we owe on my student debt? And, you know, I was blessed to have a wife who was a Division I college volleyball player, had no real debt. She got her master's degree with no debt. So, you know, she brought a lot into the marriage where I felt coming in, I was bringing in a lot of baggage of debt. And we both had, you know, car loans and things like that almost, to me, sort of weighed us down. And we decided to sit down and really create a plan for our finances. And we do a monthly budget together. I think it helps us in our marriage because we're not out here wondering what is she spending money on. She's not saying what is he spending money on, because we talk about it ahead of time. And you know, we decide together what's worth spending money on. And I think I wish I had started that something when I was something I had started when I was younger, a little sooner, when I was first coming out of school. And really, you know, I don't know if you guys know who Dave Ramsey is. I don't exactly follow the Dave Ramsey plan, but I think there's one thing. I think a lot of what he says is stuff people should really follow. But there's one thing that he says that really hit home with me, and that's something that I would do a little differently because I would start this sooner. And it's something you almost said in a little bit different phraseology a minute ago, Britton. But he says, you know, you have to have a plan for every dollar that you bring in, because if you don't, he says you have to tell your money where it's going to go, because if you don't, your money will tell you where it goes. And that's never a good solution, because then you wake up and, you know, you don't, oh man, what did I spend this money on? Did I really have that good of a night out on the town? Like, oh, did I really need that extra pair of shoes or whatever it is? You know, everyone has their vices on things that they look at from personal finance perspective. There's always things that weigh people down. But I wish I had started sooner, planning out every single dollar I bring in and saying, I'm going to tell this dollar where it goes, and I'm going to tell this dollar where it goes, and I'm going to put it towards the things that are going to make me successful in the long term. Like, there's some sacrifices my wife and I have made since we got married, that when you look at the grand scheme of life and how happy we are as a couple, and the fact that we want to have kids, and, you know, these are things that don't even feel like a sacrifice when you look at the end goal. And if we take a short-term perspective on everything and we say, I have X amount of money, how can I bring enjoyment to myself now? You might be tempted to spend that money in ways that maybe aren't best for your long-term goals. So you really have to take that perspective of, what is my end goal? And is it, I want to own my own home and be the first person in my family to do that, something like that? Or I want to be able to send my kids to college, or, you know, something like that. Those are the goals that everyone's going to come up with for themselves. And maybe it's just, I want to buy a nice car. But, you know, once you have those end goals in mind, those small sacrifices you make now don't even feel like anything. It's the same thing with sports. When you're saying, I want to be a D1 athlete, or I want to go pro or whatever, that waking up at 5:30 in the morning to go work out, that's fine, because you know you're doing it for a purpose. So that's something I wish I had started doing earlier in my life on the personal finance side, because that's something I did in high school, wake up 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to go work out before school. And if I had taken that same mentality into my personal life, I think I could have been even farther ahead on the path to where I want to be than I am right now. I know that was a lot, but Blair, you're up.
No, that's awesome, Mitch. Coach Britt, to directly answer just your question quickly, and I'll move on to another tailspin of answer to that. Professionally, when I first started out, I had to take a test in order to keep my job. Most financial advisors have to take a series of tests just to prove that they know how the stock market works, how finances work in general, how to sell stocks, how to sell bonds, what are the intricacies of derivatives and options, etc. When I first started, my first 6 weeks on the job, my only job was to study to pass this test. And the deal was that if you pass the test, you get to keep your job, but if you fail, you're done. That's it. So that's a lot of pressure, especially on somebody who's just out of college. You know, they're super excited about their first job. You know, you got family and friends that are rooting for you, but also, you know, that's pressure not only from yourself and from your career, but you've got family and friends that you're like, well, dang, if I don't pass this test, I'm going to have to go back and tell all these people that I got fired from my job because I couldn't pass this test. That's kind of embarrassing. So thankfully I studied, I passed the test, did very well. But to directly answer your question, that is a time that I was successful professionally. I do not want to have to do that again. That's not fun to be under that kind of pressure, to either pass or fail, and if you fail, you lose your job. That's not fun. But just to bring up something that Mitch was talking about briefly, what I see in my everyday career is that there's a lot of people out there, especially young folks, and I see a lot of young couples that come in and that don't even know what's going on with their finances. There's a lot of people that are financially illiterate when that should not be the case, because I don't care who you are. If you are, for the most part, living in America, you have to deal with money in some way, shape, or form. Everybody should have some kind of knowledge regarding their own personal finances. You don't have to be a stock market expert, but you should at least know how much money you have in your savings account, or where that money is going. How are you spending it? What kind of debt do you have? What is debt? I see some young couples that come to me and, you know, Blair, we're kind of thinking about investing a little money. What do you think? And what I do with all of my clients before I sit down and say, hey, you should invest here, is I say, well, let's back up a little bit. Let's look at your whole financial picture first, because this money that you want to invest, it may not be put to its best use by going into the financial markets. You might be a lot better off paying debt that you didn't even realize you were paying a lot of interest on. And perhaps they might not have needed me to tell them that. Perhaps it should have been a known thing. But what happens is, as I go through a questionnaire and begin to find out what their finances look like and get a whole picture, I realize that a lot of people don't even know what's going on in their own finances. You know, maybe they have $25,000 worth of credit card debt, but they wanted to invest $500 a month. Well, that might not necessarily make sense when you're paying 15 to 25% on credit card debt. You know, I found out a lot of people that say, you know, I think I have retirement accounts, but I don't know where they are. Well, that's your money. You should probably know where your money is.
For sure.
But what I've helped some younger couples do, and which I know they do not want to do again, especially it just seems that the young couples that have maybe one or two kids are really getting going in their careers, they may come in with a lot of debt. And I say, before we do anything, we need to pay off some of this significant debt. You know, if you've got credit card debt that you're paying 25% interest on, you should pay that off pretty much before you do much of anything else. If you don't have any savings, any kind of rainy day fund, you should definitely try to do that maybe before you go out and buy the new PlayStation 5. That should probably be at the top of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I set out a plan for these couples, and it doesn't have to be only young couples, it can be older people as well, and they follow it, it is not fun to set yourself on a budget just like Mitch and Mara have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't enjoy it every day for a living. I don't enjoy setting up a budget. It's not that fun, but it's something that you have to do. You have to set up a budget. You have to know where your finances are going. And for the people that do that, and maybe they don't want to do it again, I don't want to do it again, it's absolutely worth it, because it can help you to really get your whole life in order. You get your finances in order, and everything else kind of seems to fall in place a little bit easier.
I'd say for sure that's the case, Blair. When Mara and I did our first budget, I don't know exactly how long it took us, but it was not a quick process. We had to go through everything we spend money on and say, okay, is this worth it? Okay, keep it in the budget. Is it not worth it? If we agree it's not worth it, let's move it out. And, there's thankfully, we somewhat kind of knew what we were spending money on already. And obviously, I have a finance background, so it's a little bit easier for us. But, I'd say now when we do a budget, it's like 5 minutes and we're done, because we understand what we're doing at this point. And it's something that seems daunting the first time you're doing it. But I mean, you look at any great athlete, right? Michael Jordan didn't dunk from the free throw line the first time he picked up the basketball, right? It's a daunting task when you look at it at the end of it. But once you get going on it, I mean, it gets easier. It gets a little bit more enjoyable. And as you start to see the results come in of you've paid down debt you didn't know you could do, or you've built up the savings you didn't know you could have, or that house you didn't think you would ever be able to afford is now within reach. I mean, those sort of things will really, really be something uplifting for you. And I mean, another thing that Dave Ramsey says when he talks about budgeting is after you do your first budget, you're going to feel like you got a raise, because you're going to get money that you were wasting on eating out when you should have been cooking at home, or buying, some jewelry or something that you don't really need. And you sit down and you say to yourself, is this worth it? And when you say it's not, all of a sudden at the end of the month, man, there's $300 I didn't know I have every month. Well, I mean, for some people that might not sound like a lot, but when you look at $300 a month, for some people that's life-changing. I mean, for me, $300 a month, that's a huge difference maker. So, I think that's something that I would encourage everybody to do.
I like that both of you guys jumped on that, because I just recently got married myself, and honestly, the first time trying to get that financial literacy off the ground in my earlier 20s, it didn't work. You know what I mean? It was something that I kind of looked at and then moved away from, and I got away from, and then I noticed, oh man, I accumulated a lot in those, 6 or 7 years from when I first started to now. As I'm getting married again, and I'm in real estate as well as doing my current job. My wife and I talked about, hey, your first deals need to be paying off that debt. We shouldn't be putting it into a fixer-upper. We shouldn't be putting it into anything else. We should be paying down that debt as much as possible before we start investing. So you guys definitely gave us some really, really good nuggets. And, we're going to have to invite you guys back for part 2. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. But at the end of our podcast, we come to an end, and we just, basically come to a huddle and just call out something quick, just a one sentence go. Anything you think that our listeners should take from you guys, Blair and Mitchell?
Yeah. So my quick advice to everybody is to never stop learning. Educate yourself, whether it be finances, whether it be your sport, whether it be your professional career. Don't stop learning. I just got married 2 years ago and now have a baby here. I'm trying to learn how to be a dad and trying to learn all these, do things that I want to do. So never stop learning and continue to educate yourself, especially on the things that really matter in life, like your family and your professional career.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Yeah. I'm going to switch up my advice after hearing Blair's a little bit, and I'm going to get a little bit more detailed with what he said. So I do some mentorship stuff with some people who are in the UT MSF program that I came through, or then in Florida State real estate program, stuff like that. And what I tell them is, hey, once you figure out what you want to do in life, that stuff, it should be what interests you. And if it is, then it shouldn't be hard to find time to learn about it. And the way I encourage them to learn, like what Blair was saying, is try to find articles, try to find journals, podcasts, whatever, read, listen every week. Just when you wake up Monday morning, if you do a devotional in the morning or whatever, when you're done with that, spend 20 minutes listening to a podcast or reading an article about what you want to do for your life, whatever field that may be in, and learn from that. And I think that's just a good directive on sort of how to keep learning, because you may pick up something that comes up in conversation later that you learned about from an article, and 2 weeks later you're having a discussion with your boss and he's like, man, that kid's real smart. Maybe we need to look at him for for a promotion or whatever, because it's you never know when you go and you learn, you might learn something from reading a journal or listening to a podcast that isn't something that would naturally come up in your day-to-day work. And somebody in your company might come across something and have a question or look for an opinion on something that you otherwise wouldn't have had any experience with. But because you are doing what Blair said, and always trying to continue that education for yourself and continuing to learn, you might be able to provide input or provide, just a thought or answer a question to even somebody who might be higher up in the company, who might have a longer time in that business, who you would expect to know this thing or whatever. Well, if it's not something that your company has always done, but you learned about it, you can provide more use, more value to that company than what they even thought you could when they hired you. And that's a great way to sort of set yourself apart from the crowd. So I think Blair's advice in continuing to always learn is awesome. And, the way I would say to pinpoint doing that and to really, really get after it is to continue and specify, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the first half hour of my day, if I got to be at work at 9, then I'm going to get to work at 8:30. And from 8:30 to 9 o'clock, I'm going to read about what I am doing right now, what other people in the industry are doing right now, or maybe you're not in the dream job, you don't have the career you want to be in forever. Okay, then start reading about that dream job you want to get. Watch a podcast, watch a video, something about that thing you want to do, and continue to learn and grow your skill set. Because at the end of the day, whether you have a degree or you just came out of high school and went straight to work or whatever, the thing that's important is, what is your skill set? That's what the company wants to see. How can you add value to them? And, we're super blessed to be living in the day and age in which we live, where, you got YouTube, Google available to you. You can learn anything at any time. So, put that down on your calendar, 30 minutes, 3 times a week, something like that, or an hour, how much free time you have, and learn a new skill set, learn about the things you want to learn. And the cool part about it is, once you figure out what you want to do in your life, those don't feel like tasks. It doesn't feel like homework or things like that. If it's something that you're interested in, you're going to enjoy that learning process, and you might end up giving yourself more time to learn about it. So that's just sort of how I tried to start going about learning in my career, and what I always recommend to people, that I'm talking with that are younger than me or coming up in their career is this is a good way to get started on how to learn. Because some people, they say you need to learn, and some people, it's just not a natural thing to go out and learn. It's not a natural thing for them. So this is a sort of pinpoint directive on how to do it, that I like to tell people and that I like to do for myself.
Go ahead, CB.
Well, y'all know my motto is 1% better every day. 1% of your day is 15 minutes. So take 15 minutes and go find something new to learn, or something that'll help you grow in what you love to do. But my call to action is find your own unique way to use your voice. It doesn't necessarily be you in front of a crowd talking, but there's always a way for you to take your skill set and enhance whatever facility, whatever program, whatever group of people that you are with or around, and make it better. So find a way to use your voice in a unique way.
And I'm going to go on kind of on the vibe that Caitlin is, but also kind of incorporate Blair Mitchell's thought process about, educating yourself daily. Caitlin said 15 minutes a day. Mitchell said 30 minutes a day. Blair said just continue to find something to educate yourself with. But I also want people to also understand that there are a lot of hidden voices out here in this country and in your state, in your neighborhood, in your community, that's willing to provide you with help if you're willing to ask the question. So I think that the biggest part of all three of y'all's call to action is you have to ask yourself that question. What are you willing to do to make a change for your tomorrow? I think, Mitchell, you talked about Dave Ramsey. Blair, you talked about your playing experiences. All of those things are all about actions. A lot of people, dream big, but they're not very action oriented. So just to call it back to action again, make sure that you are educating yourself, but also ask yourself that question of what you can do to continue to educate yourself and push towards success, and also what voices are out there that's willing to help you get to where you need to be. The last thing we're going to leave our
Audience.
podcast with today is we are going to leave it with our mottos. Just something that we say to ourselves, something that just kind of gets us going. We're all athletes. What is something that you say to yourself? CB, I'll let you start. Blair, you can go. Mitchell, you can go, and then I'll finish up. Go ahead, CB.
Remember, don't discount your value, and let's get 1% better every day.
All right.
All right. I like it. I don't know if I could give you a value or a motto that I have every day, but I can tell you that I want to get better every day, but I also want to learn something new every day. And even if it's something that I'm doing every day, maybe learning something a little bit more about what I'm doing.
Awesome. For me, I want to keep Christ first in my life. And then I want to, really focus on what's most important. And I think that that's something that can get lost as your daily grind gets to you. You get busy, you kind of forget about things, but you may have family that you're close with or friends that you're close with. Make sure you're keeping them in the right perspective. And for me, after those things are done, one thing I like to do is just set long-term goals, man. And once you've set those long-term goals, you just take, you sort of look back and you say, if my goal is to be here, this is my long-term goal. What is the step before that? What does it look? Where do I have to be the step before that to get to that long-term goal? And then once you figure out what that step is, backtrack it again. Say, what's the step before that? And eventually you'll backtrack and you'll figure out, oh, wait, that's where I am right now. And you say, okay, if this is the step I'm on and I just laid out all the steps towards my end goal, now you have a path that you can follow. So that's what I like to do. Set a long-term goal and then look at every step that it takes to get there, starting going backwards until you figure out where you are in that process and then start down that journey, man.
Man, I'm super blessed to have the opportunity to coach again. CB told me I couldn't stay away from it too long, so I'm actually coaching some 10-year-olds, flag football. Super excited. I left them with this the other day. I tell them the 3 L's. They all looked at me and said, Coach, we don't take L's in our life. And I said, you're going to take these 3. And these 3 L's are listen, learn, and love. Make sure that you are able to open your ears, listen to advice, have that discernment, and learn something new each and every day. And make sure that you love and have passion for what you do. Remember, Coach B loves you, and let love be the frequency. Blair, Mitchell, I'm super excited to have you guys. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Really
Bye.
enjoyed it.
Appreciate y'all.